In this direct answers video, we're going to talk about common misconceptions about using trusts for asset protection and how to properly use trusts for asset protection. And this is because Jab6223 commented on one of my videos. Jab asks, what's the best trust fund to protect assets? Which is better, revocable or irrevocable? So to give you a brief overview of trusts, a trust ultimately is a three-party relationship. The first party is the grantor, who's the person who sets up the trust and puts the assets into it. The second person is the trustee of the trust, and the trustee holds title to the assets and manages the trust. And the third person is the beneficiary of the trust. And the beneficiary, as it sounds, is the person who's entitled to the benefit of the trust. The biggest benefit about setting up trusts is that you get to avoid the probate process when somebody dies. But the biggest misconception associated with trusts is that you can use them for asset protection alone, and this is not the case. Now, since we discussed what a trust is, there's two types of trusts that most people set up. The first type of trust is a revocable trust. This can also be called a living trust. With the revocable trust, the grantor sets up the trust, but they also have the right to change the terms or revoke the trust entirely. And on top of this, they can add and subtract beneficiaries as they choose. And the second type of trust is an irrevocable trust, which is what many wealthy families in this country use. Unlike the revocable trust, if you set up an irrevocable trust, the terms simply cannot be changed. This means that you can't add or subtract beneficiaries, and on top of that, it's a lot more of a complex structure. So unlike a revocable trust, when somebody sets up an irrevocable trust, the terms of the trust can't change and you can't add or subtract beneficiaries. Once the irrevocable trust is set up, it's pretty much set in stone. And on top of it, when an irrevocable trust is formed, it's much more difficult to get the trust terms changed. This is not the case with the revocable trust. There definitely are pros and cons to setting up an irrevocable trust or a revocable trust. The biggest pro of setting up an irrevocable trust is that they do offer better asset protection than revocable trusts do. This is because with an irrevocable trust, you can include a spendthrift provision. And with a spendthrift provision, if a beneficiary gets sued, that creditor can't reach the assets that are held inside the trust. And on top of that, there are other tax benefits associated with setting up an irrevocable trust. However, there are also a lot of cons to setting up an irrevocable trust. Once it's set up, it's very hard to change the terms. And on top of that, they're much more pricey to set up, and they cost a lot more money to manage. And I should also mention that irrevocable trusts have a much more complex structure than revocable trusts do. The pros of setting up a revocable trust is that they're much cheaper to set up and they're much easier to change the terms. And on top of that, with a revocable trust, you can avoid the probate process. And the probate process is a process where after somebody dies, people need to go in front of a judge to determine how the assets of that deceased person are going to be passed on to the beneficiaries. And if you have a revocable trust in place, it'll distribute the assets according to the terms of the trust. The benefit here is that it'll save you a lot of time, it'll save you a lot of money on attorney's fees, and the probate process remains private, meaning you don't have to go in front of a judge and it's not on the public record. The con of setting up a revocable trust is that they don't offer the asset protection that irrevocable trusts or LLCs do. Now, at the end of the day, it ultimately depends on your specific situation. But the structure that we recommend for a lot of clients is as follows. If you have any assets, we recommend having a Wyoming LLC to own all of those assets. The benefit here is that with a Wyoming LLC, you have better asset protection than you would with a trust. And on top of that, instead of you owning the Wyoming LLC, You would set up a revocable living trust that owns your interest in the Wyoming LLC. And the benefit here is that you can change the terms if you want, and you also get to avoid the probate process. Now, having this structure is really nice because it kind of operates like Batman and Robin. The LLC provides you with the asset protection, and the revocable trust helps you avoid the probate process. Now, I should mention that this is a general structure and it does not apply to your specific circumstance, but it is something that we recommend in many situations. Hold on, I'm not done yet. If you're looking to start a business, click the link in the description below and schedule a free 15-minute consultation with us. Also, make sure to check out the Corporate Direct website and subscribe to our newsletter, where we'll send you a lot of good information on corporate law amongst other things. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you have any general questions about anything. I'll see you next time.